Namaskar. I welcome all to be a speaker on this auspicious occasion. And this is the 21st anniversary of Kargil War Victory, Operation Vijay. I would like to read few lines for this particular thing because from 1999, every year we've been celebrating this particular victory every year, and शहीदों की चिताओं पर लगेंगे हर बरस मेले, वतन पे मरने वालों का यही बस बाकी निशान होगा. Friends, regarding this particular Kargil victory, fortunately today we had so many programs, so many eminent speakers been speaking on this particular subject. And then I was also honored to listen to a lot of people on this particular subject. And then suddenly I realized that yes, I am also going to be a speaker in one of the program as such. How do I differentiate between their talks and my talks? I was thinking about that. Now, regarding the Kargil, I hope that a lot of material is being available on the Google. We have seen a lot of movies about that. How do we really differentiate from that particular talk? So I was thinking from this point of view. If you go back, really, how did Kargil happen? Why did Kargil happen? If you little go back to this particular history, you know that right from the day one when the Pakistan was been formed, we knew pretty well that this is one country which is not going to keep silence. This country, right from the day one, tried to revenge for some reasons. They always wanted to fight India right from the day one. And it is always in their blood or a DNA to plan out something sinister against this particular country. I hope we all remember that the basic formation of this particular country was on the principle of a two-nation theory. But Jinnah came out with one slogan, which we are still bleeding out of. For that particular slogan was a 1,000-cut policy. Direct wars, we fought with them. They lost in all the wars. But on the other side, 1,000-cut policy was not just limited to the wars or the direct armed conflict with India, but subversive activities. We are all aware that how difficult terrain or the border we are having with the Pakistan. It is highly porous, highly, it is actually the terrain which it's not possible for any army of the world to guard it directly. Though our forces have been guiding that, our Air Force, has been guarding, complete border with the Pakistan. Despite having said that, there are a lot of points from where it is so porous, and the topography is difficult, but the population is moreover or the same kind of a thing. Like if you go to any border village of the Pakistan and India, you will find mostly everything has been same over there. So any infiltrate person staying in our village, you feel like that it's very difficult to identify those particular people over there. A lot of people keep, before this particular thing, people used to come and travel all along. Borders were not that strict as such. Later, all it happened. How did Kargil happen? I hope we remember that when Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government won the election mandate, it was the part of the election manifesto that India will be a nuclear power as such, and we did that particular thing. I hope that on the 11th and the 13th May was the Pokhran test in the Rajasthan, and subsequently even the Pakistan also did it in Balochistan. Nuclear blasts were been made, and both nations were declared as the nuclear nations. But 1971 victory of India was there in the mind of one person from Pakistani establishment, and he was none other than General Pervez Musharraf. Right from the beginning, Indian army never had anything against Pakistan as such. Whenever they attacked us, we tried to only defend us. And for defensive, offense, I should say in that way, that we showed all our might and the forces to them. But in our history, we never attacked any other country. But whenever we were attacked, yes, we went ahead and we protected our country in a way to show our mettle, and in a way to show that our forces are the mightiest forces on the earth as such. Now, 1971's war was there in the mind of a Pakistani establishment, especially the army, and they always wanted to avenge this particular thing. Now, going back to the little about how exactly the Kargil was planned in a way. It is not a one day's particular planning. We can take it directly down to uh, a year or more than that. Before that, the planning actually was started, because Kargil was all about the invasion of our Kargil, tops and the mountains by Pakistani direct army, but they were being, projected as the Mujahideens and the terrorists who are, occupying those particular all hilltops of Kargil and other sectors, Mushkoi sectors as such, you can say. So what exactly and how did this happen? That this was been planned much before. This plan was being presented by General Musharraf to Benazir Bhutto, but she said, so no, it's not possible. She felt that this plan is not going to be a successful plan. Even in the case of Nawaz Sharif also, Nawaz Sharif was, it has been said on record that he was being kept in a dark. There are, people might say that no, he was aware of that one, but at the end of the day, he also accepted many times that he was not completely aware of what's happening. Because if you understand the Pakistani establishments and Pakistan's affairs, government is altogether different. Then we have the in Pakistani army, which shoots all the routes. It's calling shots, not from today, but right from the day one of formation of the Pakistan. And then we have ISI also been active supporting Pakistani army's nefarious designs against India as such. So this plan was there in offing right from the one so many years as such. But during the General Pervez Musharraf's time, they wanted this plan to be executed. So there were a lot of people who were involved. Lieutenant General Mahmood Ahmed was one of the person from the commander of the 10 Crops. In fact, in November 1998, he asked, Muhammad Aziz, who was the chief of general staff that particular time, to, and also he was accompanied by one Mr. His name is Javed Hassan. He was the commander of the frontier constabulary of the northern areas. They sought, this particular plan and wanted to, occupy these all terrain from the Kargil and other areas, the height, all these sectors where it is one of the most difficult terrains to fight, especially the war. And this is what was there in their minds. This particular the plan was been hatched behind the doors and in the power corridors, army corridors of Pakistan. And then it all started. They started occupying these all hills of the Kargil, Mushkoi sectors and other sectors as such. Now, having said that, was this particular intrusion into the Indian borders was absolutely not new to the Indian establishment, neither to the forces guarding the Indian borders as such. We always had these particular cases, that their terrorists used to come inside, our army people used to shoot them. But having said that, the terrain of the Kargil was so difficult, and then it was being detected that there were only 6 people, those who starting at one particular point. There were 6 intruders who came into that. How do we detected that? That there was this yak gazer, I should say that, who actually first, and that in this particular terrain, the army people don't stay there for very long because the temperatures are so down. It's a blood freezing temperatures around 49 degree, minus 49 degree temperature goes You can just imagine that even if the temperature goes to the 15 or 18 degree, we start wearing the sweaters in the cities or here in India. But minus 49 degree, just unimaginable. Human being cannot even breathe properly over there. That's the kind of the terrain which was there, and especially the valleys were so difficult. But then how and why did the Pakistanis wanted to capture those particular hills is one of the very important point to be noted. There is one national highway, national NH1 is the one which was strategically the most important national highway over there, which was a kind of a blood vein, you can say, or the road national highway, which was we are having our access to the other side of the Kargil and other areas. Only the only way for Indian Army and establishment to go to that particular place was through this particular highway. So it was there straight away a simple plan to cut off this particular area and to have the upper hand in this particular so-called as their conflict. The operation designed by the Pakistanis were named as Operation Badr. you know Even to at one extent where I have read that General Parvez Musharraf's assessment about this particular operation Badr was that he too was not highly confident of that this would success to the highest level. But having said that, highly ambitious man, he flew to the Kargil area that has been well known in the Indian media. He flew to the Kargil media. His helicopter was being detected. He himself, made the recce of that particular area before planning this particular operation. So you can just imagine the kind of, venimity what the Pakistani establishment had against Indians, and they always wanted to do something nefarious, something which will hurt the Indian sentiments, Indian army, and it will put down the morale of the Indian army and Indian government as such. Having said that, their plans were perfect. Uh, when they occupied this particular entire terrain, the first and foremost thing we should remember that since they were planning it from very long, their ammunition stock was on the very higher side. They had a lot of ammunition stocked over there. When this was being first detected, it was being reported directly to the Indian Army's nearby post. So Indian Army, thought that though they took a cognizance of the complaint or the observations made by Namangyal, that yak gazer whose yak was lost. He was using his binocular because normally in that particular terrain, the height of the points is so high, and yak is one animal which can climb any height as such. So with these binoculars, they were watching. He was actually trying to locate his missing yak, and suddenly he found that at one particular point there were 6 army men, or you can say that they were, their movement was going on over there. So he realized that there is something wrong. He came down and reported this to the Pakistan. Now, there, what exactly the conflict? I should say that it was the beginning point of the Kargil War as such. It all started over there. So now you can say that this was the, when it was reported first, Pakistani armed forces were completely backing these all intruders, so-called as an intruders. And apart from that, we can also say that they were fully equipped to take on the local parties or the army patrol parties which were being taken. So our 5 to 6 men were being sent to check what exactly has been happening. And that they were also being treated very badly, and we lost starting these all men. Having said that, the second point was like I have the names of the people actually. How all it started. The petrol team first on the 5th May. You can say that the team was headed by Captain Saurabh Kalia, and he was sent to the Kargil Hill to find out what exactly didn't happen. Now, having said that, Captain Saurabh Kalia's entire team was been captured by Pakistani army. and rest all is in well-known history. What happened with him was something which was against, the basic rules of Indian Army, not just any Indian Army, but any armed conflict is being guided by certain rules and regulations. Uh, and you know that Saurabh Kadia was captured, he was tortured to such an extent that his eyes were gouged, his head was cut, and his body was cut into this. And the same thing was being done with those all 6 army men who have been sent by Indian Army. That's the way, that's the kind of venom they had against Indian Army. Never ever in the history of armed conflict these kinds of things happened. And then that was the point where it was a flashpoint basically. Capturing army man is a very common between any armed conflict, but torturing to this particular level was something which was absolutely not acceptable by anybody. But on the other side, there is no humanity exists. So they did it. And then that is how it all started. 9th May was the day when the heavy shelling, that because they were highly equipped with almost all kinds of equipments. They had guns, they had mortar shells, they had the Stinger missiles, and they had most of the things with them. So they started shelling so heavily, and the ammunition depot of that particular area, Kargil depot, was being blasted completely. And you know that on the second day, probably, we lost 137 crores ammunition was being lost by India. Simple. It was so simple strategy that they were, sitting on such a height from where it was very difficult for us to, our armed forces were on the ground, and the height was around 16,600 feet. It is such a height that when the missile comes, it comes with the double or triple of the speed of the normal missile, which travels into the air-to-air missile. You can say that. So this was being sent from the top to the on the ground. So it was hitting our armed forces in such a bad way that our ammunition depot was being cut. Now try and understand that cutting, a heavy shelling of NH1. Apart from that, the ammunition depot was being blasted. So their designs were very clear that they want to cut down the NH1 completely for the Indian forces to move. And every movement of Indian forces on that particular NH1 was being clearly watched and observed by Pakistani people sitting at that particular top posts which they occupied over there. Now, Indian Army moved more posts. Now, a lot of people ask me a question that why can't we move more forces over there? Guys, try and understand one thing that in this particular scenario, we could have moved. We had enough forces. We had enough, ammunitions, and enough, our forces had enough ammunitions, enough equipments, and we were much better prepared for that particular war. But then why can't we move our forces over there? For the simple reason that, having said that, if we would have had more forces over there sent, it would have been direct invitation to the Pakistani forces to send their forces into this particular area, which could have made the things more difficult. And apart from that one, it would have been more easier for those intruders and for those mujahideen, so-called as the mujahideen sitting on the top, to target our more posts or the forces, I can say that. Now, this particular, 24th May was the first Air Force attack which was done from our side. That our Air Force was been called up by, General Malik. He was of the opinion that now it's a high time that since our armed forces were being moving and trying to, attack these posts, our grenadiers team were been moving and trying to shell out, or the drive out these particular intruders. Air Force was much needed. Now, how does Air Force One helps in this particular matter? That one has to understand the thing that in such a terrain where it is absolutely not accessible, the temperatures are sub-zero and blood chilling temperatures. It is practically speaking, very difficult for an air force to carry out an attacks on those hills. Now, where do you hit exactly? Even a minor miss, doesn't impact them at all, because the height of those all hills was so so much, and then that entire area of the conflict was such a zone where, practically speaking, a missile not hitting that particular area of that post is of a zero value. You can say that militarily speaking, it was having no meaning at all, just hitting that particular one post. So, but then still, having said that, to bring enormous pressure on these occupiers, we can say that army launched an operation. Apart from the army's operation Vijay, there was an air force came into the picture, and even the air force started bombarding these all things. And even for that matter, probably I can say that this is one of the first wars, you can say that in the recent past, wherein all three armed arms of our security forces, army, navy, and air force, all three fought together. Now people ask that how does navy come into the picture? The Safed Sagar was the operation which was been launched, and I hope that we are all aware that they tried to, you can say that, pack up the Karachi based port, which was a major port for them. They knew pretty well that it was a strategic plan on our part, that in case if the conflict goes higher, we could have attacked the Karachi port, which would have damaged Pakistani establishments to the maximum level. And that is one of the reasons why it was a strategically moved, that navy was been also moved, and that is how it was been carried out. Now, in this particular war, was it the this war lasted for quite a long period. You can say that, but every day was testing time for our forces. That our army jawans were trying to climb up the hill, and the fire used to come from the other side. That we lost around, the official figure was been lost is a 527 guys. 527 of our jawans were been lost in this particular conflict. This, though it is an official figure, 1363 army jawans were been wounded in this particular conflict. Now, having said that, in any conflict, it has been the number of the people, those who are martyred or the injured, might differ. But why this particular conflict was more important and more why we celebrate it with so much vigor over here is, the first of all, the terrain. It is very easy to fight the wars on the normal ground and other areas where it is accessible. But in this particular area, you can not fight the practical war. And still, having said that, we have won this particular war with the complete courage and the wishes and the will of 132 our entire population of India, and the strong strategic and military planning by General Malik at that particular time, you can say that. Now, having said that, this particular it was 27th May. There were a lot of heroes actually from our Air Force. On the 27th May, Flight Lieutenant Nachiketa was one who was he was fighting. He was flying his fighter jet, and that one missile came and hit his fighter jet at that particular time. We all know that when the fighter jet has been hit by the missile, pilot normally ejects from the fighter jet. So Nachiketa also did the same thing. When he tried to land down, that unfortunately he landed into the other side of the LOC, and there he was being captured and his torture started. That when our army jet, our fighters ejected from the jet, and when their body was coming down, it brings literally tears in the eyes of people who remember that particular moment. The people sitting at the top, those who were occupying those all posts, literally guy fired thousands of bullets into the body which was coming down from that particular top. Parachute might have come down, but the bodies never came down. It was only his body parts which came down. That is how our warriors were been treated. Now, this particular entire the conflict, or you can say that the starting few days of the conflict, they were shot down our two jets. One of that was been shot on the 28th of May, and we lost our four soldiers on that particular day. June 1st, they again, started bombing heavily on our, posts and our army jawans through artillery. They had a huge artillery stocks with them. They had no dearth of that particular thing. And 5th June, one thing happened, which was a little a turning point. You can say that till now, everybody from the Pakistani establishment was claiming that these people, those who are firing shots at the Indian Army and Indian Air Force, were not a Pakistani army men. They were only Mujahideen. This was being claimed by that. But by this time, our intelligence was working behind rigorously to find out what's exactly is happening. Though we, at large, we were aware that this is not only a Mujahideen's work, handiwork. 100% it was been backed by the Indian Pakistani army. So we produced the proof of all this involvement of a Pakistani army to the media, and probably for the first time Atal Bihari Vajpayee had a press conference from the 7th Race Course in Delhi. Guys, this was unprecedented, that Prime Minister conducting a press conference from his own 7th Race Course, official race course, wherein it was been the media was being told, and told the world that it is not the intruders of some jihadi group or some terrorist group, but it was direct involvement of the Pakistani army into this particular fight. And that proved to be a turning point, because the world started bringing the pressure on the Pakistan establishment, and there were been questions being asked about that. Now, 6th June was the time when, because Indian establishment was completely aware, our government, our defense forces, and everybody was well aware of this thing. So we launched the major offensive from the 6th of June in that particular area with our complete force, over there. 9th June is the time when we recaptured the two, important positions in the Batalic sector, and that started the beginning of recapturing our lost post. I can say that. 11th June was another day where Indian army released the intercepts of the conversation between the Pakistani army chief on a visit to China and Chief General Army in the Rawalpindi, as the proof of the Pakistani involvement into this particular conflict. And these audio tapes were been released by Indian establishment. On the 13th June, guys, the Indian army captured one, Tololing was the name of that particular point, which was in the Dras sector. By this time, right from the start of the war, Indian army and Indian troops could recapture the 21 positions out of all of those been captured by the Pakistani intruders. You can see that. Now, 15th June was the date when there was a telephonic conversation of Prime Minister asked Prime Minister that to pull the army from the Kargil as such. But then Indian army, it has captured 2 points. I'm sorry, I'm reading that. Number 5060 and 5100 near the Tiger Hill. You know that in the Tiger Hill and other areas, if you find that every hill is been strategically given some name, which is the, most of the time it is like, recently we heard that in Galwan, it is the finger, that figure 1, figure 8, like that. So in Kargil Hill, this area, it is like a point, So it was a point 5060 and 5100 near the Tiger Hill that was been recaptured. Ghatak platoon, which is a very famous and the dreaded force of Indian Army, consisting of a Major Manoj Pandey, Captain Vikram Batra, Grenadier Yogendra Singh Yadav, Rifleman Sanjay Kumar. They led the war, and except Yogendra Yadav, rest all were been martyred in this particular war, guys. Now, 2nd and 3rd July, Indian Army launched three-pronged strategy that Trishul Bhindi 14 hours of non-stop firing. That's one of the major point which turned this war into our favors. We were fighting at this particular force, occupied post for 14 hours non-stop. Imagine, guys, one a bombshell can cause so much damage, but we were literally firing for 14 hours non-stop at that particular point, and Tiger Hill was occupied, and the tricolor was erected on this particular point. So, guys, if you see the entire Kargil conflict of these days, we have to acknowledge one particular thing, that it is most difficult terrain in the world, I should say. The temperatures are absolutely sub-zero, unforgiving. I can say that it will not forgive human being if they go there. But and for Air Force, it's very difficult, and for Army to fight with the enemy which is sitting on the top, from where he can see even your one single step, was the most difficult war ever fought by Indian Army. That's one of the reasons why this is considered as the one of the best wars which we fought with the Pakistani intruders and the army in general directly. Um, that's one of the reasons why 71 other wars, all four wars, were altogether different wars. Now the second side of these wars is one that this was the war which was being projected by the media directly. I hope that we are all aware that sitting at home, we were seeing every day what's happening on the war ground. So the media was being involved in a very large way in this particular reporting of this particular war. Some of the media channels were very well present in the war zone directly. They were reporting from that. Some of our own reporters who are very famous now, you can say that they were reporting from this particular. Though Iraq was something which was been projected, or you can say that telecasted directly from the satellite, but this is the war where media came into the picture directly, and that is how the world took the cognizance of might of the Indian Army and how we were being fought. A lot of contradictions happened while reporting by some of the media channels, but then we will not get into that particular sector because that's not the thing to talk today. We will only talk of our this one. So 5th July, we have taken by the time the control of the Dras sector, you can say that. And in the meanwhile, there was a call from President of United States, Mr. Bill Clinton, to Nawaz Sharif to withdraw from that particular area. He said that you have to go back. There's no other way for you. And it was been proved that it was an intrusion and a misadventure by the Pakistani army as such. So Sharif announced the withdrawal of their forces from this Kargil sector. 7th June was one where Jubar Height of the Batalik was been captured by Indian Army. Then Pakistan on the 11th July started pulling back the troops, and Indian soldiers captured the key peaks at the Batalik sector. Say that. And on the 14th July was the proud day for India, guys, having lost so many our brave hearts. There, Vajpayee declared Operation Vijay as a successful and victory of Indian Army in that particular region and in this particular war. And 26th July, Kargil conflict was officially ended. Did it end over there? No, it didn't. Conflicts with Pakistan will keep continuing as long as that country exists. The existence of Pakistan itself is a threat to Indian peace. But is it threat to only India? No, it is a threat to the global peace, guys. The DNA of the Pakistani army and the Pakistani establishment is an anti-India. Anti-India sentiments is the business in Pakistan. Without anti-Indian sentiments, Pakistani army cannot survive. Till now, they fooled world, by asking to aid them or to help them in the name of fighting terrorism. But on the other side, they are the ones who have inflicted terrorism not only in India but in many parts of the world. You can say that. So how did I can say that the importance of this war was from the many points, guys. Um, First of all, the pre-planning of this war was been not done in a day or two, but it was been happening from the years together. That's one thing. Now, the second thing is that when it took certainly Indian, army by surprise when they started facing, the continuous and increased attacks from heights of Kargil and the other points from where they occupied that area. But as Atal Bihari Vajpayee, I hope that we all remember that the day when he was talking to the media, he said that um, भारत शांति चाहता है, ये तो सारी दुनिया ने देख लिया, लेकिन अब समय आ गया है कि हम दुनिया को ये भी बता दें कि शांति की रक्षा के लिए भारत अपनी ताकत भी बता सकता है. So that is what exactly our war planners did. They actually, it was the best possible efforts, the military strategies under General Malik, and by Tipnis was also there, and the current Air Force man, Mr. Dhanua, was part of the squadron that particular time in Air Force. So we lost our great heroes in this particular war. So many, 527. I will be doing injustice to some of the people if I take only names of the few people. But for me, even one Jawan was equivalent to anyone who has lost. It is not really correct on my part to not to take the names of all these 527 people. But then it becomes difficult. So I will say that even one Jawan was lost. It was a big loss for India. 527 Jawans were been lost in this particular war, guys. I'm not getting into too much technicalities of the war. I'm not touching out how strategically our forces were been moved, or the air force was been moved, and other things. But basically, I can say that it was one operation versus three operations: Operation Badr versus Operation Vijay, Operation Safed Sagar, and another operation by Indian forces. I can say that. Three operations versus one operation. We have won, no doubt about that one. But what is the message this particular war gave to India? Does it give message of you go ahead and celebrate Kargil Vijay Divas once in a year? If that is the only message given by this war, I feel that uh, it's not right on our part, Indian population part, to take this war in the real spirit. Friends, we have fought 5 wars, say, with four wars, major wars with Pakistan. But the spirit with which Indian army fights every war, they sacrifice their life. They go to this particular sector without even thinking a bit of themselves, their families, and their personal things. They just go there because they know pretty well that they will not come back live. They will come back, folded in a tricolor. what we as a citizen of this particular country. Sorry, I'm touching one other point of this particular topic. Um, in general, I can ask everybody who has joined this particular, meeting, that as a citizen of India, what's we are doing as an duty, guys. It's my humble request to all the people that army people really make sacrifice which nobody can even think of. You know, they sacrifice their entire life. That is the reason why it is called as the supreme sacrifice. Whenever we see army man, guys, because it is those people, because of them I'm sitting in my house safe. Otherwise, it's just unimaginable that enemy can come and do devastation in our country. It's only army people, those who are guiding this particular country's border safely from right from the day of our independence. Whenever we see army man, guys, I feel that we have to stand, we have to respect them, we have to salute them. That's one thing we can do. That I feel that as a nation we can do something which is much important from the point of, because at the end of the day everybody needs a respect, everybody needs a moral booster. So a citizen saluting army jawans will be a great moral booster. That is what was been mentioned by even our Prime Minister, Honorable uh, Modi ji, in the recent past. That whenever you see an army man moving in a dress, please respect him, please salute him, please clap for him, because they are the ones who are guarding our nation. Now, guys, I have one of the one or two lines for that. You know, um, why did this happens that after war we forget normally the army man or the air force and other people? Do we really forget them? May not be. I'm not saying that everybody forgets them, but in a course of the life, yeah, we might not remember them every day as such, unless and until somebody talks about them, or somebody discusses about them. कुछ पन्ने इतिहास के मेरे मुल्क के सीने में शमशीर हो गए. I'm sorry, I'm using the Hindi, word for that. कुछ पन्ने इतिहास के मेरे मुल्क के सीने में शमशीर हो गए, जो लड़े जो मरे शहीद हो गए, जो डरे झुककर वजीर हो गए. This I am referring to our own, some of our own erstwhile, I can say that the people, those who ruled this particular country for long years, army, air force and navy could have been more stronger, more efficient and more equipped to fight these kinds of wars. But few people preferred to not to look at them. Our borders were not being developed. I have personally been to some of the borders in the Jammu region recently, and I have seen that my driver was trying to tell me that, sir, अभी तो हालत ठीक है, लेकिन इससे पहले अगर बॉर्डर पे आना तो 6-6 फीट के खड्डों पे से गाड़ी चलाना पड़ता था, 4-4 फीट के खड्डों से गाड़ी चलाना पड़ता था. Our borders were not being well equipped, made good roads, but I'm very happy that now the things are being changing. And any future conflict, Indian Army, Indian Air Force, and Indian Navy would be much better to take on our enemies. And guys, I can say that Operation Vijay was concluded with the tricolor flying across all the hills of which were being occupied by the Pakistani establishment, a Pakistani army, a Pakistani generals, and their dreams and their wishes, they came crashing down completely. Any misadventure by the Pakistani forces will be met with 100 times equal and opposite forces by Indian army at any given point of time. That one has to remember that. Even 1947 we did it, though it was the first probably first war we fought with them. But another one thing I can tell you, very important point about this particular war, Kargil, was won. It is said that India won all the wars till date, but lost most of them on the diplomatic negotiations part. This is probably the first war where even in the negotiations part we won. The reason was very simple, because the people sitting at the Delhi were confident that, and they presented the facts to the international arena in a proper way, in the correct way, and they supported the Indian Army, Navy, and Air Force in such a way that everything was been given to them. Nothing was been, they said that whatever is required is been completely given to them. So it's a twin victory, as the media was been involved into this particular victory, and so in all, it laid down example of the most difficult war ever fought by Indian forces, and in the most difficult terrain, most difficult conditions. Uh, Hats off to Indian Army. And guys, I think so that uh, we all as a citizen, as I rightly said, that we should start respecting our armed forces, our Air Force and Navy, and in general the security forces as such. At least as a citizen, we can always do that, because at the end of the day, motherland concept is only in India, guys. This is part of our culture. If we don't love our country, so I feel that we all should be ready to do something for our country. What way we do is altogether different. Every army man is a civilian in the armed forces dress, but every civilian should also be an army man in a civilian dress. That is what I feel that. With this, I would like to conclude and hand it over the things to the organizers. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Jai Hind.